LeBron's lack of accountability for forcing the Lakers to get rid of Russell Westbrook. All right, he had denied any involvement in that whatsoever, and he's the reason behind Westbrook being traded. That LeBron allowed the local media, or convinced the local media and the national media, to view him as a savior to the Laker franchise.
It sounded harmless at first, almost like one of those throwaway comments athletes make all the time. But the second it left LeBron James's mouth, you could feel it. This was going to blow up. Because when LeBron said he's not a numbers guy, that didn't just land quietly. That hit a nerve. And within hours, Carton was on live TV absolutely tearing that statement apart. And the way Carton went at it, it wasn't subtle. It wasn't polite. It was direct, blunt, and honestly a little ruthless. He basically said, "You're telling me the guy who just broke the all-time scoring record isn't a numbers guy?" And right there, the entire debate flipped. Because now it wasn't about what LeBron meant, it was about whether anyone actually believed it.
Ginny Bus grumbled to her board of directors that she thought LeBron James' ego was completely out of control from the day he became a Laker.
Here's the part nobody is talking about. LeBron didn't accidentally say that. That wasn't a slip. That was intentional. Because LeBron has always been very aware of his image, his narrative, and how he's perceived in the all-time conversation. Saying, "I'm not a numbers guy," is less about stats and more about positioning himself as something bigger than stats. It's about legacy. But Carton wasn't buying it for a second. On live TV, he broke it down in the simplest way possible. You don't become the NBA's all-time leading scorer by accident. You don't chase milestones for 20+ years without caring about numbers. And you definitely don't celebrate those milestones the way LeBron has if numbers don't matter to you. This is where it gets dangerous, because once someone calls out that contradiction publicly, it forces everyone else to pick a side. Either LeBron is being genuine and people are misinterpreting him, or he's shaping a narrative that doesn't fully match reality. And in today's media world, that kind of debate spreads fast.
About not giving him a contract extension this last time and trading him to get rid of the pain in the ass that he has been since he got to LA.
Now, let's be fair for a second, because LeBron's full statement wasn't as simple as people made it seem. What he likely meant was that he doesn't define his greatness purely by stats. He's always talked about making the right basketball play, elevating teammates, and impacting the game in ways that don't always show up in the box score. And to his credit, that's true. He's one of the most complete players we've ever seen. But here's where Carton's argument hit hardest. You can care about winning and still care about numbers. Those things aren't mutually exclusive. In fact, for most all-time great players, they go hand in hand. Michael Jordan cared about numbers. Kobe Bryant definitely cared about numbers. And they still built their legacies around winning. This is where young players usually make a mistake. They think they have to downplay one aspect of their game to highlight another. But greatness doesn't work like that. The greatest players embrace everything. They dominate statistically, and they win. They don't try to separate the two. And that's why Carton's take resonated with so many people, because it felt like he was saying what a lot of fans were already thinking, that LeBron, whether he admits it or not, has always been aware of his numbers, always tracked his milestones, always understood where he stands historically.
That LeBron James was not grateful that the Lakers drafted Bronny for him.
Now let's talk about the timing of this, because that's what makes it even more interesting. LeBron is in the late stage of his career. Every season now is about legacy. Every performance adds to the story, and every statement gets analyzed in the context of where he ranks all time. Here's the part nobody is talking about. LeBron is actively shaping how his career will be remembered. When he says he's not a numbers guy, he's trying to emphasize impact over stats. He's trying to separate himself from the idea that his greatness is just about accumulation. Because one of the biggest criticisms he's faced is that his records are more about longevity than dominance. And that's where this gets complicated. Because while longevity is part of his greatness, it's not the whole story. LeBron has been elite for 2 decades. That's not just playing longer, that's about maintaining a level of performance that almost no one else has reached. But in debates, nuance gets lost. And that's why statements like this become so polarizing. Because fans don't hear the full context. They hear one line and they react to it. This is where it gets dangerous, because the conversation quickly turns into extremes. You have one side saying LeBron is downplaying his stats to look more team-oriented, and another side saying people are twisting his words to create controversy. And somewhere in the middle is the truth.
Gave him the last contract extension out of fear that if she didn't, she would have to absolve and take, on a personal level, a bad PR hit. That is directly from the former owner of the Lakers. Every one of those things has been a talking point of mine since he became a Laker.
Now let's connect this to what's happening around the NBA right now, because this debate fits into a bigger trend. The league is more stat-driven than ever. Advanced analytics, efficiency ratings, usage percentages, everything is tracked and analyzed. Players are constantly judged by numbers, whether they like it or not. At the same time, we're seeing a shift in how players talk about the game. More emphasis on team play, versatility, and impact beyond scoring. And LeBron has been one of the biggest voices in that shift. But that's also why his statement feels contradictory to some people. Because he's not just any player. He's the player who just passed Kareem for the all-time scoring record. He's the player with countless statistical milestones. So when he says numbers don't matter, it feels off. Here's the part nobody is talking about. Both things can be true. LeBron can care about winning more than numbers and still care about numbers. He can track his legacy while also focusing on team success. But the way he phrases it matters because it shapes how people interpret it. And that brings us back to Carton, because his reaction wasn't just about calling LeBron out. It was about challenging that narrative. He was essentially saying, you can't have it both ways. You can't celebrate records and then act like they don't matter. This is where young players usually make a mistake. They underestimate how closely people are paying attention. Every quote, every reaction, every detail gets analyzed. And once you say something that doesn't fully align with your actions, it becomes a talking point.
The owner of the Lakers has now confirmed that everything I've said about LeBron James has been 100% accurate. And all those people in the media that are being paid under the table by Clutch Sports, and I know who they are, every one of them now is going to have to do some major damage control, because this isn't like me saying it or a colleague of theirs saying it or anonymous whispers out there.
Now let's zoom out and look at the bigger legacy angle, because that's what this really comes down to. LeBron versus Jordan, numbers versus impact, longevity versus peak dominance. These debates have been happening for years, and they're not going anywhere. And statements like this only add fuel to that fire. Because Jordan never tried to downplay his scoring. Kobe didn't either. They embraced it, they owned it. And for some fans, that's part of what makes their legacies feel more straightforward. But LeBron's legacy is different. It's more complex. It's about versatility, adaptability, and sustained excellence. And that complexity is what makes debates about him so intense. This is where it gets dangerous, because no matter what LeBron says, it's going to be interpreted through that lens. If he talks about stats, people say he's chasing records. If he downplays stats, people say he's being disingenuous. It's a no-win situation in terms of perception. Meanwhile, around the league, younger stars are watching all of this unfold. Players like Luka, Tatum, and others are building their own legacies in a league that is even more stat-focused than ever. And they're seeing how every word can shape the narrative around their careers. And that's why moments like this matter. Not because they change what LeBron has accomplished, but because they influence how those accomplishments are discussed. So now we're left with the real question. Is LeBron actually not a numbers guy? Or is he redefining what being a numbers guy means? Because if you look at his career, the numbers are undeniable, the records are real, the milestones are historic. But if you listen to how he talks about the game, it's clear he wants to be seen as more than just a stat machine. And maybe that's the truth, maybe he's both. But here's where the debate gets interesting. Do you believe him? Do you believe that the all-time leading scorer doesn't think about numbers the way we think he does? Or do you think this is just another example of a player carefully shaping his legacy in real time? Because one thing is certain, as long as LeBron is still playing, every word he says is going to matter. And after what Carton just did on live TV, this conversation isn't going away anytime soon.